Logan Crawford, and this is the award-winning TV talk show right here on Ebru Fresh Outlook. There are seemingly countless contenders to be the GOP presidential candidate for 2016, but despite this endless list of candidates, two names are standing out: Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Each man could be a spoiler for the more established candidates. Presidential politics in 2016 is a changing game, and part of the change is an emphasis on utilizing social media. Let's say hello to the Fresh Outlook think tank, Jeanette Hoffman, Republican strategist, Dr. Jose Lopez, physics professor at Seton Hall University, Dr. Bart Rossi, political psychologist, and joining us live via Skype, Rich Rubino, political commentator and blogger. And you can keep Rich up in the monitor because I'm going to go to him first. He made predictions about Bernie Sanders being a big name in this race, and I couldn't believe this crazy old man from Vermont would ever make a difference, but he has. Talk about it, Rich.
Yeah, it's actually very similar to Ron Paul the last time around. They were both, both candidates in their 70s, and in both cases, in Ron Paul's case, there was almost an effect in some people in his supporters, almost like there's no God but Ron Paul. And in the Bernie Sanders case, it's there's no God but Bernie Sanders. He's got 250,000 donors right now. There are a lot of them are small donors, so he's running as kind of an insurrectionist candidate. There's a lot of discontent on the left with the establishment of the party, just like there is on the right with the establishment of the party. They view Hillary Clinton as the establishment candidate. They view her as too hawkish on foreign affairs, too interventionist. They view her as too close to Wall Street. And Bernie Sanders is really striking a resonant chord with people who really view Hillary Clinton as, I think, too centrist in many ways. And where this could affect Hillary Clinton potentially is potentially moving her to the left in the primaries, and it'd be very, very hard for her to get back to the center in the general election. But he could potentially be kind of the Eugene McCarthy in *68. Remember, Eugene McCarthy ran basically a grassroots campaign and had a lot of support from a lot of young people who were really attracted to him. When he garnered 42% of the vote, Lyndon Johnson was out of the race after that, and then Bobby Kennedy came in. So could potentially Bernie Sanders be a stalking horse for somebody else? I mean, there are always these possibilities because it just shows that Hillary Clinton is not as popular on the left wing of the party as I think some people expected. All
right, Rich, thanks very much for that insight. Let's turn to Dr. Bart. He talked about Bernie being God. I'll talk about Bernie being Santa Claus. How do you run against Santa Claus? He wants to give everything to everybody for free. Free college education, free phones, I listen to the guy, and he's as crazy to the left as Donald is crazy to the right.
He kind of reminds me of Huckabee in a way on one side, and Sanders is on the other. He does have a winning personality. He's very comfortable being himself. He likes being himself. He likes being consistent. He's always the same on the issues, and he doesn't disregard anybody. And of course, he presents himself as a very good listener for the average person, the average guy, not the 1%ers. This is very attractive. So I think his personality and his message is attractive, but to your point, who's paying for this and how does it work? I don't think he's good at really talking about how his ideas actually work in terms of finance, in terms of business. That's a mystery to me, but his personality is a good one.
Do you think the voters really care, Jose, about who pays for it? They figure somebody else is going to pay for it. I just want my free stuff.
I think that everybody wants the government to give them something. Of course, they want something from government, whether it's roads that aren't filled with potholes or whatever it is. And I think Bernie is really kind of getting them at that chord there, that the government is here to help the people and give them something. And the other candidates are not saying that.
Part of what he says rings true even with me. I tend to be a libertarian, I tend to be conservative, but let's talk about the other conservative in the race, the other guy making headlines, Donald Trump. In fact, Jeanette was going to comb over her hair today in tribute to him in honor of the Donald, right? Donald Trump got very lucky because a young woman was murdered in San Francisco. If Kate Steinle had not been murdered in San Francisco, he would have been dismissed as a hateful nut. But now it seems like he might have a point, that we are letting murderers and rapists in. Not all, but why can't we close our borders, Jeanette? You're a Republican strategist.
I think Donald Trump's comments are just very harmful. They don't add anything to the debate. I think it's toxic to the Republican Party because the things that he says are just so outlandish. And not even.
Is he wrong? Are murderers and rapists not coming over the border?
Look, I'm sure. Are there some murderers and rapists coming over the border? Yes. Are there some murderers and rapists that are Americans? Yes. But the things that the generalities.
But the Americans are supposed to be here. The people are coming in illegally aren't supposed to be.
Look, he is totally over the top, and I think he is saying all this for media. I mean, he is a media personality to begin with. He's out there, he's getting headlines, he's getting ratings for whatever news show he's going to come up with, whether it be his presidential reality show. I don't think he's going to stay in the race, to be quite honest. I think once the financial disclosures need to come forward with all his business dealings, I think he's out of there. But I think he's in.
I think to your point, though, he's really pitching to those people who hate immigrants.
Yeah.
Angry Americans who are frustrated with themselves and they don't really like too many people.
Okay, Doc, I got to stop you. First of all, I think the problem is the left controls our lexicon, controls our verbiage. It's not immigrants people are opposed of. We're all immigrants. My grandmother was born in Italy.
Right. Me too.
We're opposed to illegal immigrants coming into our country 7, 8, 10 times, 5 times in the case of this murderer.
Well, that's true, but the immigrants that are coming in, many of them are here. There's 12 million. They're working. They're paying taxes. And the amount of rape and crime is less with them, studies show, than us, people that are living here. So most of these folks are contributing. And there should be a way for us to consider them. And Trump, to your point, Jeanette, is not considering them at all. He's blowing them off, and that appeals to some people who are frustrated with their own lives. I get that, and they're out there.
I mean, he's blowing them off because he can, because they are a hidden minority that are contributing, are paying taxes. No one is really realizing.
I don't think Mexicans are a hated minority. I really have to disagree with you.
Illegals is what we're discussing.
Right, but that's the problem when we just say immigrants.
But you said most people.
But they're not Mexicans.
I agree with that.
People are going to hate Irish people. People are going to hate Italian people. People are going to hate. Haters are going to hate.
But they're not voters, so he can say what he wants to say about them, and that's why people are responding to him, because these people cannot speak for themselves.
Let's get Rich Rubino in on the conversation. Rich, why is Donald Trump ringing true with a lot of voters, more than just the angry and frustrated, I think, since he's number one in many polls we're seeing nowadays?
Yeah, a couple reasons. First of all, because he's unfiltered. And in many respects, I think the American people are just basically sick and tired of candidates kind of prevaricating. You see Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, you ask Hillary Clinton about the, trade promotion authority. She says, well, I'm still thinking about it. You ask Jeb Bush about illegal immigration. He says, well, I support a path to citizenship and not a path to, it's a path to earn legalization, not citizenship. And people kind of look at those as weasel words. People like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump as well, I think really, at least in Donald Trump's case, he gives the impression that he's speaking from the heart. Now, is he an opportunist? Back in 2000, when he was considering running for the Reform Party nomination, he left the Republican Party and said that he thought the Republican Party had gone way too far to the right. And all of a sudden, he's capturing, people, the kind of the Tea Party conservative, and a lot of the conservative intelligentsia in the Republican Party. So is he an opportunist? I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. There's always a very populist, even if it's a millionaire populist, movement in this country that can appeal to people that are just dissatisfied with bureaucrats, dissatisfied with government. Remember George Wallace in 1968 talking about how he was going to take the briefcases of all the bureaucrats and throw them in the Potomac River? That really reminds me a lot of what I think you're hearing from Donald Trump right now. It's the idea that you're going to essentially say something that's unfiltered, you're going to stick with your position, and you're not going to try to prevaricate, with the political winds kind of shift. You're not going to say, well, that's not quite how I support it. That's not how I said it. You're saying, yeah, that's how I said it. And I think that there's a lot of people who are really supportive of that message.
Okay, let's talk about another candidate right now. Somebody threw his hat into the ring this week, a very big hat. I think it's like a 9 1/4 or something like that. Chris Christie is running for president. Here's a little bit of his announcement. Take a listen.
America is tired of hand-wringing and indecisiveness and weakness in the Oval Office. We need to have strength and decision-making and authority back in the Oval Office, and that is why today I am proud to announce my candidacy for the Republican nomination for President of the United States of America.
And then the crickets got quiet because I don't think anybody cares. Let's just go around quickly. Jeanette, what do you think of your GOP guy, Chris Christie?
Don't count him out. He
Don't
is
come
a
out.
contender. He might be the underdog right now, but he's been the underdog before. And actually, a Reuters poll came out today that shows him third. It's Trump, it's Bush, Trump, and then Christie.
But those are the only three guys people ever heard of, right?
Well, that's true.
part of it.
But look, these polls matter because on August 6th, there's going to be a debate of the top 10 candidates at Fox News, and they're taking the average of those 5 national polls. So polls do matter. But I do think Governor Christie is the underdog for a couple reasons. One of his big challenges, he has this personality that, tells it like it is. I don't know if that plays very well in a lot of places. That's kind of one of his weaknesses. I mean, he's not as far out there as Donald Trump, but there's some videos around telling him to sit down and shut up.
Telling it like it is one thing. He's nasty.
Yes.
Jose, you live here in New Jersey.
Yes.
He's hardly worshipped here in the Garden State.
I saw a poster of him in a high school it was a picture of Chris Christie, and it says "Eat right," and the next one was "Don't bully." And I'm like, wow, that's like the anti-message you should be getting from Chris Christie. I mean, what was interesting is that he went back to his old high school where he was this class president, Livingston High School, and he announced there that he was running for the presidency. I mean, and that just confuses me. I mean, but he thinks that is the platform you should be at if you're running for a national office of the president.
And nobody likes the class president anyway. He just think he's a brown noser who got in it. And know what's funny? In Livingston High School, he shoved some kid in a locker.
I think
and
he
took
did.
his lunch.
Yep, and took his lunch.
Tell me about Chris Christie, losing personality.
Now it is. I thought that at first, a tough guy for tough times. He had a window of opportunity to really present that really dynamic, tough personality, rough around the edges. That would work, except that he went to arrogant and abrasive. And most importantly, he's not believable. He's not believable on Bridgegate. He talks about what he's done in New Jersey, but his word doesn't go with reality. Right. It just doesn't blend. And people know that.
And he cut a deal with the teachers union, and he reneged on that deal. Yeah. And the people getting hit are pensioners, even though they're pensioners at 45. That's another story for another day.
But I just have to say, I have to chime in. One of the biggest strengths that Chris Christie has out of all these candidates, he is a tremendous retail campaigner. Yes. He can look you in the eyes and make you think like you're the only person in the room. Right. He's got that Bill Clinton charisma. I think that's what he's focusing on in New Hampshire. He's doing all these town halls. He's there more than any other candidate. He's using that John McCain, 2007 model. So that's where his strength lies, in the ability to connect with people.
Retweet. And speaking of that, let's talk about social media. Rich Rubino, Barack Obama in 2008, when social media, very successful, even better in 2012. In 2016, social media, where most people get their news from looking at Twitter or Facebook or whatever else is out there, Pinterest, who's utilizing it well and why?
I think Bernie Sanders certainly is, because you have a 73-year-old who's becoming an icon to the young people. I think I think every candidate, though, it's become, it's almost like, what's the new thing after this? Facebook, Instagram, all the social media outlets are really, I don't know if you can be a presidential candidate without having a major presence on there. But I will say about Chris Christie that he balanced the budget when he was president of his high school class. So that's something at the national level, I think. And if there are these three governors have one thing in common: Scott Walker, Bobby Jindal, and Chris Christie. They all have job approval ratings in their home states well below 50%. So I think that really shows kind of their master narrative. They can't show that how popular they are and all these great things they've done in their home state when people say, well, look at what are the voters who know you best. It's amazing. I mean, Chris Christie just got reelected with 60% of the vote. Now he's got a job approval rating in the 30s.
Okay. He balanced the budget, by the way, in his high school by adding revenues to the school cafeteria.
And
that's
the bullying
how he did
fees.
Let's talk about the other two big names quickly. Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush. You take your choice. What's the headline about each this week?
Well, I think Hillary is presenting herself reasonably well, but she has to get to the point where she's more specific and she has a policy that she stands for. She needs to win this. And I think that in her campaign, there are some people who think that she can just go along, play along, and she'll get it. That's not going to happen. Not only because of Bernie Sanders, but she's got to win, she's got to play the game, and she's got to work at it. And I sometimes I see her just going along with the right sound bites.
Okay, I'm going to jump to Jeanette.
Yeah.
I think Hillary's strategy of staying away from the media and staying away from interviews and keeping the press roped off
Literally.
is wise because she's so darn unlikable. If we get to know her, we'll never
Right. No, and everything, Hillary's one scandal after the other, and if you have press questions in your face all the time, it's not going to be good for her. I think she's got a real problem coming from the left with Bernie Sanders, and I don't think her favorability ratings are doing that well. Jeb Bush, on the other hand, raised a boatload of money this week. I think he's raised $11.6 million in only 16 days of his campaign. So it seems that he's emerging as the front runner, kind of the only adult in the room when you consider Trump and Cruz and Christie.
He is acting above the fray, and I
Right.
think that does go to his benefit. In fact, he has that cerebral, professorial approach that Barack Obama has that I think is effective. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to wrap this up. Talk about social media and its impact in 2016, Jose.
I think it's the norm for everyone, not just your 13-year-old high school girl, or it's for everyone. I mean, and the politicians all know this, so the candidates all know this. I think a few videos were great. I thought Hillary's was really good on social media. What she did there, I think what Bernie Sanders is doing is wonderful. Bobby Jingle, I don't know what happened there. He had a hidden camera, and he had his family when he revealed him he's running for president, and his two sons and his daughter looked at him like they were shocked. So that's not a great way to stand.
It was supposed to be a joke. It was supposed to be funny. Instead, we got
It was weird.
Okay, I got to hold it there. We're going to say goodbye to Rich Rubino. Always a pleasure having you, Rich. You can read more about Rich's stuff often in the Huffington Post, I believe, right? And online and on the radio. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the growing list of American cities dealing with the drought. More on that dry story after this.